Have you ever done something wrong? I mean, like, you knew it was wrong, you knew why it was wrong, you agreed that it was wrong, you knew how it was going to affect other people, and you just did it anyway? Yeah, me too. It may surprise you to learn that the book of Leviticus has some good news for you. Doing something wrong does not exclude you from God's love or God's kingdom. And that's what we're talking about this week on the live show. Kindred UMC live show features adults discussing adult topics, occasionally with adult language. It may not be suitable for young viewers. Please use discretion before watching.
Hello all, welcome once again to the Kindred UMC pre-recorded live show, coming to you not live but pre-recorded from our various Kindred studios, A, K, J, and F, and Z, and Z, because we've had a little bit of a COVID situation, and so we are meeting separately, virtually, and the technology has not been kind to us, so I hope you will be kind to us. My name is Chris Hayden. I'm the pastor at Kindred UMC.
Hi, I'm Courtney. I'm the lay leader at Kindred UMC.
And I'm Preston, and I had a quote told to me today that I did not like, but need to recognize. Let people love on you.
It sounds gross when they say it that way, doesn't it?
I know, and it was my
love
dad.
On you?
I'm like, oh, Dad, come on, man.
It is good advice. You ought.
It's very, very good advice.
You ought to let people love on you.
Yeah, that can be a curmudgeon, but whatever.
Me too. I'm especially when I've got COVID. So we are in our final week of Blood, Guts, and Fire, the Gospel according to Leviticus, the book that most people find very hard to read. But as I hope everyone has seen from watching the previous videos, and if you haven't, please go check out the set list or wherever it is on YouTube's. I don't know what it would be. Maybe it's down there. I don't know. But go check out our previous installments in this particular chapter or particular book study. And you'll find that the first several chapters of Leviticus are all about celebratory, wonderful things. And then the ones that immediately follow are all about reconciliation and peace and how to make amends and how to make peace with your, not only with God, but with your community. So we've come at last. We've talked about the sin offerings, the ones that, like, how do you make amends for when you do something wrong or you fail to do something you should. And so there's one that's like you didn't know, like you did it ignorantly. You know, you weren't aware that you shouldn't do, I don't know, you're not supposed to poke a badger with a stick, you know? It's like, oh, I just found out I'm not supposed to do that. And then you have to make amends. And that's what the first sacrifice for guilt and sin offerings are. Next, there's a series of guilt offerings, and that's for when you sin or you become unclean or you touch something or you kind of cross a line. And the first one is for sins of omission. It's not when you cross a line necessarily, it's for when you when you fail to do something that you ought to do, that you should do. You know that the right thing to do is X, and you just kind of do nothing instead. A sin of omission. Now we're going to talk about the big grand poobah, and that's when you know it's wrong, and you cross the line anyway. So we're going to look at Leviticus chapter 6, starting at verse 1. Sounds like this. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, when any of you sin and commit a trespass against the Lord by deceiving a neighbor in a matter of a deposit or a pledge or by robbery, or if you have defrauded a neighbor or have found something lost and lied about it, if you swear falsely regarding any of the various things that one may do, that one may do, and sin thereby, when you have sinned and realize your guilt, and would restore what you took by robbery or by fraud or the deposit that was committed to you, or the lost thing that you found, or anything else about which you have sworn falsely, you shall repay the principal amount and shall add 1/5 to it. So you don't just have to repay what you screwed up or you took, you also have to pay a little extra. 1/5 more, 20% more. So there's a little tax for doing something wrong. You shall pay it to its owner when you realize your guilt, and you shall bring to the priest as your guilt offering to the Lord a ram without blemish of the flock. So, and then it's going to start to go into the ritualistic, like actually how to do the sacrifice. But I want to point out a couple of things. One, the first thing you have to do is repay what you've done. If you've done something wrong, you are responsible to repair the damage. Then you have to take care of your relationship with God, and that's a sacrifice. And then it does the same thing in the other sacrifices. If you can't afford, if you can't afford, if you can't afford. And so like anybody can sacrifice to God no matter what level of status you are. But you have to repay with interest what you've destroyed or what you've taken or what you've defrauded, and you have to restore your relationship with God. Those are the two main components of this. So here's the thing. Have you ever done something that was wrong?
No.
No?
Definitely not.
Have you ever known it was wrong and just been like, I'm doing it anyway? Have you ever had that feeling? Just like, I know it's wrong, I know this is bad, and screw it, I'm doing it anyway.
Oh yeah, you go full Bridezilla. This is my day, and I'll have it. I'm doing it. I actually have a couple of things on this. So, traffic. That's about it for that. Yeah.
Period.
As soon as someone slights you, you're angry, you're upset, and will be enough to pay them back or do it to someone else, and then be fine, and then be completely normal. Like everything's back to good. But my other thing on it, I went to school for criminology, so the biggest thing here was you guys have to stop thinking people are prone to be criminals. The thought is people are, number one, always looking out for themselves. So if a crime is committed, when you're thinking about why or how or who, think of what are they going at? Like, what's their survival tactic here? Why would they be doing this to someone? And then on top of that, thinking on the other side, like, well, they're going to prison for this, or we've caught them, they're going to jail. How are they going to repay after prison? And they're thinking about it. So these sound like very natural ways of a society to go. Like, there has to be recompense. There can't be...
Well, so there's something interesting. I don't hear a lot of, at least in our criminal justice, I don't hear a lot of, like, how does a person repay their debt to society? It's more just being punished. Like, if you do something wrong, we lock you in a room, and you can't do anything you want to do. And, like, we just seclude you, and it's a punishment. And there's not... I don't hear, I don't know, because I don't know anything about prison or jail, really. But I don't hear a lot of talk, at least, about, like, yeah, but how does that person actually pay their debt to society? And so, like, one of the things that this brought up for me was felons are not allowed to vote. Like, felons can't vote, still. And it's like, well, if they've served their time and, they're a non-violent offender, like, I don't understand what's going on there. And, there's, I know there are some ways, like, that's a hot topic. People are actually working on that right now. But there's something about I think that traces back to, they're not, sitting in a cell is not repaying a debt to society. And there's no sense of, like, actual renewal, actual restoring.
Rehabilitation.
Yeah, right? Like, there's something going on there that's not right, I don't think.
I actually had something and I lost it. Sorry. I shouldn't have said anything.
Well, that's okay.
I was real happy I was going to snap back, but I had nothing. It's gone. I was going to say community. I think community service is probably, like, the closest we have to that. So seeing, like, good behavior, and then they can get back out in their community and help. I know what it was. Okay, so
even community service, hold on to it, don't forget it. Even community service is kind of like, that's like on the lower end. That's like, that's for like if you stole some lipstick from a store, you know?
You kicked the dog or something, yeah. Something. But I was going to say, we can welcome them back into society, and then you can sit next to them at a table at dinner, but they can't vote for a person going into office.
And usually only if you don't know that they are criminals or former criminals, you know? Like, usually if you, like even the job market, if you're a felon, it's like, forget it, you know?
Yeah. It's nothing. Can't do anything.
There's no way to kind of like make up for what you've done, at least in our current model. There's no way that, maybe there are literal like processes that people can go through to do that, but I mean, like, I'm talking about in our hearts as a society, the way we feel about criminals, the way we feel about felons. You know?
It's like a family member. That I don't know if either of you have any. I have a couple. They're a little distant, but it's still they're coming to the dinner. So, like, be on your best, like, watch out.
It's
like,
going to be weird.
And if there's this whole tension, and no one's talking to them, no one's treating them like, that's Uncle Bubba or Cousin Bubba. You gotta go over there and talk to, like, they have to feel a part of this, or they're going to go back. They're not going to feel welcome here. They're going to, like, feel ashamed and whatever you need, but there's just no, again, that recompense feeling that everyone feels like they deserve. If I put enough work into it, I know I did wrong. You gotta let me back in. I feel like it's the...
Yeah. All right, I want to come back to that, but Courtney, you were about to say something?
No, I was just agreeing. Yeah, like, the family thing definitely makes sense for me. Like, when you asked, like, have you ever done something, like, wrong? Like, I immediately thought about, like, summers with my dad in Michigan, and, like, I'm an instigator by nature. It's who I am. It's something I have to work on. And, like, I would very, like, maliciously and purposefully instigate him when we were out there. And because he had hurt me, so I wanted to, like, instigate and, like, shoot shit back. And so I think, like, that all ties into what Preston was kind of saying about family members and stuff, too.
We all pretend that that's not a human tendency. You know, we all pretend that, like, that's reserved for a select few of bad people. But there's something profoundly human about, I feel hurt and now I want to hurt back. And I'm not saying we should lean into it, but if something that is universally human immediately disqualifies you from love and grace and mercy and, like, excommunicates you from the community, then we have a problem. And I think there's something going on, at least in Western American society, there's something going on to a degree that there are some things that if you do them, you're just done. That's the end. And I'm not talking about murder. Like, I'm not talking about, like, horrific things. I'm talking about, like if you get caught on a felony drug charge, man, like, that's it. And we just have this unrelenting judgment on a person like that. And we don't even, sometimes we don't even know what the actual details are. We just know the word felon or felony.
Yep.
And, like, that's enough. And, all right, you're out. That immediately disqualifies you, you know? You know, I've never committed a felony, but, like, there are certainly things that I've done that... There are things that I've done that I can think of right now that would be inappropriate for me to even talk about. Like, there are things that I'm like, man, I am, like, especially as a teenager, holy shit. Or, I mean, you know, poop, holy caca. Like, there are things in my adolescence where I was kind of listless and didn't have good parents, didn't have good morals, and, like, just did things that was like, I'm just getting what I want. I'm just trying to get what I want. I'm so terrified all the time. I'm just trying to be safe and get what I want. You know,
and Courtney knows and agrees with this too. Teenagers are horrifying creatures. That's just what they are.
They really, really are. Yeah, and
I can say I was definitely one of them. Even with a good standard and good boundaries and great morals.
Well,
Just wanted to get
right.
out. Wanted to get out. Yeah.
And there's something about what happens to a society when there isn't the opportunity to now, and I have to be careful here because this is not an excuse to do harm. I'm not saying it's okay to actively not consider other people, to commit acts that harm other people at your benefit. Like it is absolutely not okay. However, if we create a society where once you do that, you're out, it's like, well, what do we do here? Like then
We're gonna run out of people.
Especially when it's things that all of us have at least kind of been tempted by. Like when it's a universally human thing, and nobody wants to kind of admit that we all have been in a place where we knew something was wrong and did it anyway. We don't like to look at that. We like to consider ourselves higher than that, but the truth is that we're all kind of like aligned on that same plane together,
Standing on the dead bodies of others, not to be crude. That's how you get your high C.
Well, I mean, and even historically, when we think about I'm very grateful.
The Holy Roman British Empire, both of them.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for the benefits that I've inherited. Like I like that we live in a mostly free society. I like that we're in a very safe country. I like that we're in a very wealthy country. I like that I can order groceries when I get COVID. That's just a thing. I can just pull up my phone and be like, give me food, and it comes to my door. That's an incredible technological and societal accomplishment. And also, I would be incredibly remiss if I didn't acknowledge that also stands on the piles of human suffering that have been people have just been thrown to the machine in order to accomplish a lot of that too. Our country wouldn't be what it was without slavery. Our country wouldn't be what it was without just kind of having this slightly murderous doctrine sometimes. There are some things that are really horrific about that, and if we don't have a way to acknowledge when we've done something wrong and still be connected to God and to our community, then what it does is it just forces us to ignore all the things we've done wrong. And now all of a sudden we can't talk about slavery and racism, and we can't talk about bigotry, and we can't talk about economic, because everything's, no, we just ignore that, and even on a more personal level, we can't talk about I've got like what you just said, Courtney, this is a thing that I'm working on, we can't do that if acknowledging that you're working on something automatically excommunicates you from the community, and I think churches too often have practiced the excommunication. Hey, if you disagree with me about fill in the blank, I mean, my go-to is always, in these days, LGBTQ. If you disagree with me about gay people, then you're out, And that's kind of our go-to move. We can't be together because you're sinful and I'm not. And it's well, I mean, even Leviticus has something very serious to say about that, we can't operate that way. We just can't. So, if you've ever done something wrong, even if you don't think you did something wrong, if you've ever been on the outside of the community and the community is judgmental against you, the book of Leviticus has good news for you. You can reconcile, you can make amends, you can find community, and certainly even within an imperfect group of people, if you can't find it with them, you can certainly find it with God. So, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.